Dan here, Vagabond Buddha, Malacca, Malaysia. Just finished my run, and I want to talk a little bit about your experience of life exists in the listening that you are. Your experience of life exists in the listening that you are. And so you can be, most of us wander through life and we're in the listening, which is of mind, which is kind of a filter that we created in our lifetime by sifting through information and deciding what we thought was true or false, and creating a model of the world. The world exists in perception, and we give meaning to various things perceived, and definitions and words and stories, and so our experience of life lives through that filter of right and wrong, and that is, if you will, that's what's protecting you from making the same mistake twice, if you will. Mistakes are made multiple times in life, but not if it's a lesson that's learned and burned into our memory. Then it's less likely to be learned twice, or less likely to be learned 3 times. And so the mind is, if you will, a library of experience and decision-making arrows, and that's the filter we listen through. Unfortunately, in life, we have a lot of pain that attaches to memories, and so by the way, I'm in a city. Malacca's a city. You'll hear cars and noises around me. I'm just walking down the street. So when we experience, in addition to attempting to protect us, our mind has emotions attached to these experiences. When our first dog died, when our mother left us for the first time for a weekend getaway and left us with family, friends, or relatives, when we lost someone we cared about, when we had a relationship that ended, we attach the emotions from that experience, and when the situation pops up later in life, time for a new relationship, brings that emotion with it, trying to protect you from making that same mistake twice. And the emotions, if I were to guess, they're there to, with the most intense experiences in your life, the emotions are there to reduce the chance of you forgetting. If you have a really strong emotion tied to something, less chance you're going to forget that falling in love can hurt when it ends, or that being alone when your mom leaves you can hurt. And so, in that respect, emotions are kind of a memory charger, and we carry them around like luggage. So we see a pattern happening, love or whatever, and we are in fear because we know it's a caution area. We've experienced it before. And so life is, my original hypothesis is that life is experienced by the listening that you're having as you experience life. And so one of these experiences could be the listening of a filter of mind. And in fact, that's the predominant filter, I would say, So much so that almost no other filter is worth really mentioning in this context. So the question is, what, and the mind right now is going, well, I'm not going to get rid of my mind because that's how I protect myself. That's how I don't invest in stupid things. That's how I stay away from red flags when I meet new people. That's how the hair on the back of my neck sticks up when I walk down the wrong street and I turn right instead of left. So I'm not going to get rid of that. So what's this clown talking about? When he talks about what are you going to do with this filter? So there's a concept in consciousness of distance, and it's not actual distance, but it's useful to speak about it in that way. But there's how close you are to the emotion that your mind's evoking, and you have to be that close. In other words, when you're looking at a new relationship and you're trying to filter to determine whether it's going to hurt you or not based on a past relationship, if you're really close to, or if you will, the emotions are raw and they're 100% of what they were on the worst day of your recovery from the previous breakup, if indeed you recovered at all, if you're that close to it, there's a good chance you'll never, for example, get into another relationship again because the cost will appear or seem too high. And so there's a distance thing that I'm hinting at. It's not really distance, and it's more about, are you able to learn from the information your mind is constructed to protect you and not have it dominate you? In other words, maybe you've decided you're not going to fall in love anymore, and that's your, conscious decision of it. But it's more likely that you've decided that you do need love in your life, and that you're back in that position where you can fall in love again, but your body, if you will, is not letting you, or you're sabotaging it because you know the cost is so high. Now, maybe you don't consciously realize that, but the fear is so high in you, you're not processing the new relationship. You're processing the old relationship. And you really can't even see the new relationship clearly, so because of the distance between the old emotion and the new facts is zero. You're right in it. And the further that distance is, the more you're able to look at the new facts objectively to see if there's other signals that are maybe that this relationship's worthwhile despite previous pain. Okay, so I'm talking about distance. And that's what's interesting about, for me, this is the maybe the entry level that, if you will, the Buddha was talking about, not in so many words. By entry level, I mean it's just sort of the beginning. And that's this idea of what some call detachment. And the question that you need for safety is, can I analyze this new relationship adequately based on the knowledge that I acquired in that previous relationship without the fear? Can I? And that's a question of detachment. And so that's what even just the beginnings of an understanding that you're not your mind, but your mind is actually a tool that's there to protect you, but you're actually something that's less limiting. Your mind is a subset of facts, subset of assumptions and emotions. And then in fact, a lot more was happening in your past that could have been captured in this three-dimensional or four-dimensional, including time, paradigm that you constructed to protect yourself. And in fact, you don't have all the information. You only have what you stored and remembered. And if you are constricted to the emotions in the present moment, you'll continue to only see part of the information, and the information will be kind of tailored to the past. You won't be seeing it freshly, if you will. And so your decision will be weighted unnecessarily to making everything look like the past and refusing opportunity because because you're in fear. And so the question is, again, can you get a level of detachment from the past that still allows the learnings from the past, from the mind, which is only a subset, as I said. The learnings don't have all the information, but you can learn from them without being paralyzed from the emotions of the experience. And that's a detachment of emotion without a detachment from the knowledge. And therein lies my original premise that there's a listening life, the joy of your life is based on your listening. The joy of your life is based on your listening. So if you think of your mind as a rule set that's going to protect you from not repeating the same mistake twice, and yet allow you to live the rest of your life with joy and amazement and to accept opportunity that comes your way, you not only need the protection mechanism, which might be constricted by attachment to motion, but you also need the knowledge. And I would argue that sort of like your best friend or someone you know knowledgeable. Maybe your best friend isn't so knowledgeable, but someone that you sought for knowledge would have advice for you based on facts, and you would go to them for a consult, and they would say, do this or do that, or it looks fine, it seems fine, move forward with it, or whatever. That's someone who's not attached to your emotions, but who you respect and is knowledgeable. And that's who's available to you. But it's not a third person, it's actually yourself. And so if you can have the knowledge of your past without the attachment of the emotion that blinds you with fear, and it may not even be blinding, it just might color, it might have a slight rouge or tint to the facts arriving in your perception. It's almost unperceivable, that alters the course of choice making in the present moment. And so detachment is this concept where you experience, and it can be described a million different ways, but we only have so much time. But detachment is this idea that you can live in the present moment, if you will, and take in the present moment data and perception of what's actually happening in real time right now, all around you, without limit. Almost maybe as a kid, like you thought a ninja might be, like they're aware of every person around them, and maybe a movie like The Matrix, where you have this concept that you're fully aware of everything around you, people, places, but it's unfiltered. Meaning your mind can't keep up with that much information, but it can, but you can, you being this larger self that you are, that I'll call consciousness. And so, if in addition to being aware that what people are around you and what animals and what everything is around you at every given moment, there's one other thing that's around you. And that's the stream of thoughts that are that your mind's thinking and the emotions that it's attaching to it. And so what detachment is not focusing only on what the mind's thinking, but opening up perception. So you're not forgetting what the mind's thinking. You're not forgetting or blocking out the emotion. What you're doing is you're absorbing all of the consciousness or information arriving at you through perception simultaneously. And so instead of your mind focus taking up 90% of your perception, perceiving mind or paying attention to mind, and 20% to that freeway in front of you right now as you're driving down the freeway, or whatever you're doing right now that's peripherally protecting you from whatever, gathering information in real time. It's sort of like flipping the chart and perceiving the world around you at 80%. And your mind is only worth 10 or 15%. Maybe not worth is the wrong word. But it's that, is that 60% different? You went from 80% mind down to 20, let's say. It's that 60% decline in mind focus, or if you rather, the 60% increase in awareness or perceptive focus is one form of detachment that you could call it. So that is that might be an active exercise you could use to detach from all the focus the mind has. That would balance. That would be about the value of the memorized perception from the previous experience, the value of it, because the truth is you didn't actually catalog everything that was going on. I know it seems like you did because you can go back over everything, but there was all sorts of other information arriving at you during that breakup, that old breakup, that you didn't catalog that would shed more light. And so by being fully aware of your present situation and present moment awareness, there's information that's available right now under these circumstances at this moment, living in your life in this moment, about that relationship that you'll automatically get. You'll get different input. Maybe not, the input will be the same, but you'll have that 80% focus on it. It opens the bandwidth. And the past only provides, it probably only gathered 10 or 20% of the information. And so by paying attention to that 20%, you're getting all the real value that it had in relation to the new information coming in through perception that would have in making a decision today. So if you think about it, that new person you're with in front of, if you're spending 80% of your time living through that rouge tint of information that only represented 20% of the information at that time in the past, and you're giving up on 80% of the information now, which is relevant to making a decision now, and because you're, if you will, overemphasizing and paying 80% of your interest now in your past knowledge, your past incomplete knowledge, you can't really make an informed decision right now. What you're doing then is just living the past. And so as an idea, it just makes sense that you can learn more by being aware now. You can learn more about now by being aware now. And that's kind of what I want to talk about. So if you can trust me and believe that you really are walking around with this model of the world and you're seeing everyone and everything, not just relationships, not just business opportunities, but everything around you is being filtered through this. And you can at least ask this, is there a possibility this guy isn't completely out of his mind? Is it possible that I'm living in this mind state he's talking about, where I'm making decisions with only 20% of the information that's happening around me right now. And if that's true for you, then you might want to migrate towards some of these people that are talking about being in the present moment. Because if you can migrate in that direction and find a voice that's interesting to you, and begin to live in the present moment, which is an experiential thing. It's not a knowledge set or technique you can learn, but it's a shift in experience or shift in perception. You might find that the present moment actually is a joyful state, and even maybe more interesting than that is it being a joyful state is that you can get the relative value of your knowledge instead of the overemphasized value of your bad experiences from the past that you misjudged because you didn't get all the information then. Why? Because you were doing the same thing then. You were living 80% in the past when you gather that information. So it's a shift, if you will, to life and away from it's a shift from to life, to living life, away from comparing life to the past or measuring what life could be as some imagined future in order to make decisions. Those are kind of the and so living in the present moment is more joyful, and you'll have better decision making. And so I haven't really talked at all about how to get into the present moment. There's really nothing you need to do, and there's no process, but it's kind of it's sort of waking up in your perception, and that awakening is sort of paying more attention to perception than to your paradigm of the world that you've constructed. So you're giving it honor. You're honoring your knowledge set. You're honoring the past. But you're balancing it with living. Anyway, Dan of Vagabond Buddha, thanks for listening. Hope you have a great day.